the thing that predicts whether or not you'll stay active in your church actually isn't like how much atheist stuff you watch on YouTube and things like that. It's actually how many friends and like good relationships with your family that you have that are religious.
If you total those together, you're looking upward of 40% of the people say the reason that they left has to do basically with
Julie Hanks.
Well,
oh my gosh.
What we're finding as well that like we did not expect is about 40% of people who leave like actually come back. And that's something that no one talks about.
How many? Really?
The next biggest category you'll see is like miscellaneous. And it's like, what the heck does that mean?
What, the refreshments were bad or what? Like, you know, I didn't like the funeral potatoes. Like what?
But only 9% is intellectual doubt and disbelief. What is the social force that causes people to think that the church is harmful? It's the culture of Babylon that we live in, and frankly, it bothers me that we're not more vocal about distinguishing ourselves from Babylon.
I would like to see what percentage of the religion is harmful people live in Utah.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Ward Radio. I'm your host, Cardin Ellis. I'm joined today in the studio by Kwaku L, Brad Whitbeck, Jacob Hansen, back by popular demand, along with a friend that he dragged into the studio with him. Apparently, we've got Alejandro Rodriguez here, with whom I do believe that you came to philosophical fisticuffs recently and had a little debate with that was moderated by one Brad Whitbeck and playing the role of Canada. Yep. Negotiating peace treaties.
That's what we do.
You know, so on and so forth. He was the Switzerland, better said, of this argument.
I'll take Canada, though. That's cooler.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So now today, Alejandro has joined us in the studio because he says that he has a very unique and special brand of Catholic terrorism that he would like to spread all over. And he's got a hostage video that he'd like to cut. He'd like to cut with us right now. Is that what is that's not stained glass behind you, is that?
No. So it is just a wall tapestry that I picked up. I mean, my family's from Mexico. My family were Catholic converts, and
so you got to have the swag, bro.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we got some LDS swag to go with it. You know, we got Saint Joseph in the background. Just to make it clear that I'm LDS.
That's awesome.
Saint Joseph. Now, here's the real test, bro. Do you have the cool little concave part cut out next to your front door that has the Virgin Maria? You know what I'm saying?
No, we don't go that hard in this household.
I was hoping at Santo Jose Smith.
I have a question real quick. What's the difference between the Virgin Guadalupe and the Virgin Mary?
No, it's the Virgin Mary of Guadalupe, which is a very specific Virgin Mary.
I'm dumb.
Who has tears in her eyes and cries for the sin of the people as she heals them. Am I correct? Am I correct in that, my friend?
Yeah, I think you are.
Which saint do you bury in your yard to sell the house faster?
That's a thing?
No, that's a real thing, isn't it? Isn't that a real thing?
I've never heard that one.
I swear, some of my Latino buddies in Houston have pranked me my whole life and told me things that are like maybe not true. I've probably said some horrific things in Spanish that they're like, "Oh yeah, say this." And
we did just have a live stream where you asked your friend how to say like "hello, you have pretty hair," and he basically told you the worst pickup line known to man.
Yeah, I said, "Tell me something gospel-y to say," and what is it? I like
don't
big
repeat
booty
it.
Latinas.
Don't repeat it.
Here's the thing, though. So the rules that govern Catholic saints is like the rules of the internet. If it exists, there's a saint of it. So there's a saint for everything.
All right. So anyway, our topic today is interesting. This struck me. This thumbnail title: "The Data of Doubt, Lazy Learners, Lexit, and the Mexican Behind It." Did I have that right, or did I misrepresent us? Okay, no. Okay, I'm sorry. I read that wrong. You're right. It was "The Data of Doubt and the Mexican Behind It." So, what are we talking about, bro?
Well, so BYU, I work for the psychology department there, and we are working on a huge study about why people leave religion. Some of the professors in the psych department, they're dropping some of the major psych stuff to focus specifically on why.
Okay, is this the one? Okay, I've heard there's a apocryphal study going on at BYU where they're figuring out not just why people leave, but the people that have left and then come back. and where apparently the number one thing that gets them to come back is an experience related to personal prayer. Is this, and they haven't published these results yet, but I've been trying to get my hands on these results for like a year now because I heard this study's been going on. Is this that study?
This is one of those studies. Yeah. So we're doing, yeah.
Dude.
This is good stuff.
Nice.
Okay. I prefer calling them lazy learners still, but we can go back to something a little bit more fruitful in the conversation. So anyway, so tell us, dude, what's going on, man?
Yeah. So, I mean, people leaving the church has been a big problem. It's been a big problem for about 30 years. In the US alone, the number of people who identify as non-religious has gone from like 8% and it's now up to 30%. That's in 30 years. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's kind of alarming. And a lot of people kind of assume like, oh yeah, that's a good thing. Religion is harmful for you. But if you actually dive into the social science of religion, it's actually incredibly beneficial for people.
You're
I'm talking-
wildly better off if you participate in organized religion, especially ones that have rites of passage. Yes.
Yeah.
Your health, your longevity, your mental health, physical health. There's not a single measurable quantifier that exists that is not improved by participating in the church. Now, are you talking about the church at large in North America, meaning like kind of Christianity and Judeo-Christian organized faith at large? Or are you talking about specifically the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
So we're doing all religions. So this includes Christians, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, and other non-Western religions.
T-Swift fans. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, what are you coming up with, dog? Hit us, man.
Yeah. So what we did is we asked everyone why, and this is here's what you have to understand. Most of the data out there about this has been really informal. So like books by, different LDS authors and journalists even, they haven't really like systematically asked people why they've left. They've just kind of like
They do
informally have
dissertations with online questionnaires given out to their friends, and
Well,
then
it's
they
even
call it
worse than that.
science.
It's even worse than that. They'll actually like put biases into their research. So for example, a particular research for her book put something like, these are 10 reasons why people leave. Rank order them.
You're talking about Jana Reese, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jana Reese.
I
We
will-
know
We
who
all
you're
know
talking about.
exactly who you're talking
Ex-Mormons.
about. You didn't even have to go very far, and we're like, oh,
I have
Jana.
those literally right here, the studies that she has.
Okay.
Okay,
cool.
so the problem with something like that is you aren't actually asking people why they left. You're just giving them reasons and they're ordering them by importance.
Yeah.
We're actually trying to ask people, hey, give us your top 3 reasons why you've left, and then we're going to systematically categorize them. So the number one reason, and this was across almost all groups except for a few which are really interesting, was that they felt that religion was harmful. And that's most people expect to find things like, oh, well, I didn't find the church to be true, or I thought religion was fake. People actually didn't really say that. What they said was that they felt that religion was harmful.
But isn't that just the latest keyword that's popular? Like in the 70s, they would have quoted zero populationism. In the 80s, they would have said climate change. That's just whatever hip reason that somebody's using to masquerade as a noble warrior for whatever cause they took. Couldn't you just say that like, oh, religion is harmful? That's the thing they figured out has worked in the past 10 years.
Just to clarify, Alejandro, are you saying your study asked more open-ended questions, and in their free responses, what you categorized those open answers as was religion is harmful? So they didn't use the buzzword necessarily, but
No.
you guys went through the free answers and said, okay, this one dials in, this one lines up to religion equals harmful.
And this was just Latter-day Saints, or was this all?
No, this is nationally representative
Okay.
across all religions.
Okay, let's
the
burn
US
through the
anyway.
data. Tell us what you learned, bro. Why are they leaving?
Yeah.
How do we get them back? Do we even want them back? What? No, I don't think
oh my gosh, Carden.
Yeah, keep talking, bro.
Well, so a few things, like it depends on what you mean by harm. So kind of to what you were saying earlier, isn't that just a buzzword? And to a certain degree it is. I mean, we went to a sociology conference just the other week to present this data, and everyone was talking about like religious harm, trauma, patriarchy, and some of these ideas, like I don't know how patriarchy like is a scientific category, but that's kind of what they're rolling with. And this is sociology too. So this is like very left-leaning
Yeah.
academics that are talking about this.
Is it really academic though? Can't we just call it like soft pseudoscience?
Yeah,
Or like
I mean, you could definitely make a strong case for that. And I mean,
Okay.
I love my field, but I am also willing to admit that there are serious flaws in it. But we're doing the best we can. So yeah, I mean, it was some of the studies. I mean, think about it, like out of all the studies, only 1% of them are going to be fantastic. Hopefully we're in that 1%, but most of them are like not great. And many of them don't receive very many citations. So, anyway, going back to the whole buzzword thing, we tried really hard to really define like what people meant by harmful. So what people meant were things like they felt like religious institutions were just in it for the money. They felt that but like religious institutions were discriminatory, or that they inflicted injustice towards people. They also included things like, like all the historical sins of the Catholic Church, or like colonialism and things like that. Those types of sentiments came out in the data as well.
Well, dude, I gotta say, if you're saying this about just religion in general in North America, I'm kind of on board with a lot of this sentiment. Because I mean, you look at what freaking Protestants did to Mormons in North America. You dude, come on, dog.
Hold on, I'm gonna push back really hard because
really hard. Look at what that dude, bruh. like Protestants v Mormons is a trail of blood.
All right. This is the problem. And this is actually the reason that people are leaving the church and feel like church is harmful.
If I were a Mormon, I'd be freaking atheist. I wouldn't be a Protestant.
You're right. That's because one of the things that I think has happened is that the new atheist movement, Sam Harris types, all of them, their message was that religion, not just that religion isn't true, but it's that religion is harmful. They beat that drum all through the early 2000s. And then what happens is now we have a generation of people who believe it. And it's false. It's not true.
You're adopting the language of your oppressors.
I don't know, bro. Like that, dude, Catholicism is one thing. Dude, the Catholics, like, they're cool, but the Catholics didn't really have a foothold in America until recently.
Dude, you go deep enough into any of their history, you're going to find all sorts of stuff that's going to shock you. But the thing is this, the overall effect of Christianity on the West has been incredible. It's the reason that you believe in equal rights.
It's the reason why the West exists.
Exactly.
Okay, but I'm saying 19th century Protestantism in America is not the Catholicism that brought us into the Renaissance. Okay? You know, it's not what gifted us the Mike Wingers and the Burger King anti-Mormon evangelicals.
Go ask the Jews in Spain about the Catholic Church, and you'll find out.
Then you're mostly believing English propaganda. I was an Iberian Peninsula historian throughout college, bro. You know. So anyway, let's keep going. Tell us what you found.
No, so interestingly enough, so let's say, for example, someone might say, well, I think the churches are discriminatory and sexist against sexual minorities, LGBT, and things like that. Well, we can look at the responses given from LGBT people. And what we're finding is most people in that specific category actually don't report that religion was harmful. What they reported was that they just weren't interested. There was a lack of interest. And this is something that was like super shocking to us because the overwhelming majority of responses was that religion is harmful. But the very people who you would think would be the victims of that harm didn't report that. And so that kind of like violated our expectations and kind of what we find in the literature. And so we're like, whoa, what's going on?
And doesn't that correlates exactly with that stuff that BYU, the studies that they did on suicide and LGBT members of the church, and found that involvement in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints actually decreases the likeliness for suicide amongst LGBT individuals.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at studies done outside of BYU by people who are even LGBT or like some type of sexual minority, like there was one that just came out of ASU or out of USU a few weeks ago, and they followed Latter-day Saints for 2 years, and they found that LGBT members of the church who had left, their mental health got worse after leaving. And again, they were expecting the opposite to happen.
John Dehlin doesn't talk about that, does he?
No.
Well, his data is so old. I mean, it's becoming
He has data? He actually uses data?
Oh yeah. Well,
He did a survey for himself and his own dissertation, and then he still quotes it 20 years later. But it sounds like they're only following anti-Mormon rule number 17 that I've already stated, that anti-Mormonism has a thin veneer of academia, but lacks the verifiability thereof. And all of us have had friends from the minority groups, because that's actually what Mormons do, is associate with minorities, both linguistic, racial, of every type, because we're a worldwide religion all the time. Meanwhile, the white middle class, middle-aged podcasters along the Wasatch Front are screaming from the rooftop, "But the gays!" Though they don't even know one. So it makes sense to us that they're full of crap, because that's what they are. But what's the biggest lesson that you learned from all of this data? I got two questions. What's the biggest lesson that you learned for this data that was kind of like aha moment that you're like, whoa, that's a really interesting insight? And then what's like the biggest thing that surprised you that you didn't expect and was kind of like a challenge to preconceived notions?
Oh yeah, man, that's kind of a complicated question. So when we first started kind of going into this, we kind of had this understanding, kind of like all the things you hear online, like that people are super antagonistic towards religion after they leave, or that people become super bitter and resentful about religion. But what we found, what was really shocking to us, was that most people are actually kind of chill after they leave religion. There is a small subset that are hostile, but most of them are chill. But then what we're finding as well that we did not expect is about 40% of people who leave actually come back. And that's something that no one talks about.
How many?
Really?
What was that percentage again?
That was about now these are preliminary results, right? But it was approaching 40%. So
whoa,
that's
yeah.
huge.
What was there a time frame on when or?
We're working on that still. We need to crunch a few.
Okay.
The Jordan Peterson effect.
It's Jordan Peterson.
Maybe.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the number one thing you said that causes them to leave, and the number one open-ended answer that you had, was they think religion is harmful.
Okay, so it was one, religion was harmful, and two, religion was hypocritical. And those are if you think about it, those are kind of the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They preach to
What's
love
the
their
number one
neighbor.
thing that brought them back?
We're working on that still. I can give you a few examples, but we haven't clustered
Dude,
them.
come on. Well, give us what you got, bro. We're not
let's do
putting
it.
your name on this. This isn't Psychology Today. This is a podcast with some doofuses. Hit us. What do you got, man?
Yeah.
So the biggest thing was actually a family member reaching out to them and being there for them. That was the biggest thing that brought them back from what we found so far.
I have to stop having an antagonistic relationship with my cousin, is what you're saying?
Christ-like ministry. Who would have thought?
That's right.
Jeez. Okay, cool. Well, so I do have a question about some of this data. Previously, I had heard that there was a study going on that said somebody's reactivation had predominantly to do with personal prayer. And I would like to think that we live in an intellectually and emotionally honest world in which people come back to religion because of a personal connection with God, not necessarily a personal connection with that nice family member, because at the end of the day, religion should not be just a social club. We're not a country club for saints, but we are a hospital for sinners, and we can't be a hospital for sinners unless we actually have a concept of God and sin and the atonement through Jesus Christ, right? So did you find that most of your results were, look, we're a social club, and when people are nice, people attend, and when people aren't nice, they don't attend? Or was there something that you could drive a tack into, that you could hang a hat into, that said, okay, this is a specific type of religious experience or a specific aspect of the religion that needs to be focused upon if you want to try and bring people closer to Christ and have them come to Christ? Or is it really all just social gobbledygook?
Yeah, so one of the ways to think about it, it's never just one reason. It's always a bunch of reasons working in concert at the same time. So the one that was most apparent to people was the one person reaching out to them, and that might get your foot in the door. But then from there, it's you take the deconversion process and you just flip it. So it's people start understanding why the church is helping people. people start understanding why, instead of people are being hypocritical, people are seeing that people are just trying to live up to like their moral standards, and sometimes they fail.
Well, what made them see that though? Okay, they left because they thought, oh, the church is a bunch of hypocrites and that hypocrisy is harmful. Okay, but what disabused them of that false narrative where they come around, they say, okay, well, people are hypocritical and it's an organization of people and I miss a lot of the benefits that I used to get, so I'm going to come back. Like, what caused that flip?
See, okay, I'm afraid I'm going to have to disappoint you. Like, our data isn't rich enough for us to really know the nitty gritty. We just kind of have like an overview, like a supervision view of kind of why people come back. But like the day to day, like what was the tipping point? It's hard to say.
Can we see some of the data?
All of this data.
Yeah, can you show us the data, bro? We want to see this. We want to see the brass tacks, dude. This is what you guys are good at. There's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics. I want to see the statistics, all right?
So what you're seeing here, these are the reasons why LDS people left specifically. So
these are Latter-day, these are specifically Latter-day Saints.
They're specifically Latter-day Saints. So biggest reason, and that was only at 28%, religion is harmful.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next biggest category you'll see is like miscellaneous. And it's like, what the heck does that mean?
What, the refreshments were bad or what? Like, you know, I didn't like the funeral potatoes. Like what?
Well, these are like really specific LDS reasons, like polygamy or like Brigham Young or something.
Oh,
like,
generally
things
historical,
that like other Christians aren't super worried about. But like for Mormons, it's like super salient. It's like, oh,
okay.
Yeah, like
one of these is just jumping out at me. Okay, a couple things.
Go ahead.
Disagreement with teachings, doctrine, policy, and leadership, okay, and religion is harmful are the two biggest ones. If you total those together, you're looking upward of 40% of the people say the reason that they left has to do basically with
Julie Hanks.
Well,
oh my gosh.
I don't know. I gotta
church leaders. So.
Okay. But that right there, but only 9% is intellectual doubt and disbelief. Now, this again coincides with my theory. My theory is that in the early 2000s, we had a lot of intellectual sort of disbelief. But since then, with the rise of wokeism, it is a cancer because it turns people against the church. It turns people against the teachings, doctrines, policies, leadership, and it causes people to say religion is harmful.
I actually think that you're a very cerebral person. You're probably my most philosophical friend. And I think that's just you assuming that others have your same approach to life and psychology and thought process. You're a very logical person. But even in Preach My Gospel, there's a very specific phrase for the missionaries where it says, you know, the vast majority of the reason why people leave are social reasons. And, you know, you need to explore those. And it's not too philosophical. Like even the missionary literature in dealing with inactives and reactivating inactives and so on and so forth has recognized for 20 years since that book was written that, you know, the largest majority of reasons why people left are largely social, and you can't control the sociability of your ward.
Well, and I would say the social forces in the macro society play a huge role.
I think most people that are going inactive don't even understand the words that you just said.
I think, but in their world, it's the church is homophobic. The church is bigoted. That is the stupidest policy that the church has around, like that missionary got delayed to go on his mission because of XYZ. And that kind of stuff, I think, is what ultimately drives people more than sort of the intellectual doubt side. I don't think intellectual doubt is the primary problem.
Yeah, I think Cardin's agreeing with you, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But I would say that where is the social forces then? What is the social force that causes people to think that the church is harmful? It's the culture of Babylon that we live in, and frankly, it bothers me that we're not more vocal about distinguishing ourselves from Babylon so that kids grow up in the church. I think the way that you defeat people leaving the church is you inoculate them. You teach them from the time they are young that Babylon is wicked, that these ideologies are false, and that you basically you have to prepare them for the onslaught that's going to come.
But more than that, I think you need to teach them the higher, holier way. right? You can't just say these things are bad. You need to also say these are the things that are good.
Yes,
because
but
I think that if you have an anchoring in being able to see what is good and true, when you end up having this worldview starting to try to take over, trying to only show you the negative, because this is something that I think is happening here, is there is a postmodernist phenomenon in which you start to only be able to deconstruct things, right? You start being able to think, oh, only in terms of how is this harmful? And so obviously, look, here is all of these things that are harmful because that's all I'm looking to see. So we need to combat it by helping people
Quaku's
see
raising
what's
his
good.
hand. Quaku is raising his
and
hand.
I do have a very important point on this I want to make.
By the
Yeah.
way, you are actually making the official auxilio call for help to an airplane when you're, when you're doing that.
Interesting. So I would like to see what percentage of the religion is harmful people live in Utah. And it also,
It's true.
because religion is harmful. When I hear that from the perspective of someone who's opposing American Christianity, my first thought is Spotlight is priests abusing children, right? Religion is harmful. I can see how someone could get out of that. Or is it, though, my young women's leader was a fuddy-duddy who judged me back in 2019, religion is harmful. I'd like to see, I don't know if the data exists yet, but really diving into that, because how much of that's cultural. And when I mean cultural, like your suburban home in South Jordan cultural, and how much of that is something, you know, I think is harmful as an institution. I'd like to see how that's divided up, because I agree that Utah Mormon culture sucks. It's got a lot of corruption. It's got a lot of frauds. It's got a lot of fakeness. But when I'm in
Yeah, but the
California,
fake hair and nails and I actually kind of like that part.
No. Oh my gosh,
You know,
Carter.
just like, oh, okay.
I would say it depends on the ward, though, right? It's very heavily dependent. Like, I know it's
Yeah.
easy to say Utah culture, but it's like
That's true.
Okay.
I have had really good wards and then really bad ones.
no, same. But like in California, my wards were all good. Does that make sense? Where in Utah, it's like
There's
50%, you know, and just we know of a culture. So I'd like to see how much of the religion is harmful is actually my subculture in my hometown made me feel XYZ, and I'm now attributing that to the banner of religion.
I'm going to actually piggyback a little bit off of what Quaku said here, and I'm going to ask Alejandro, which I just totally love. If you're going to have a Latino name and not just go with Alex, like, you know, half of the second and third generation buddies that I have did, you know, if you're going to go with the original Latino name, Alejandro, it's just like, you can't go wrong with that. It's great. So, Alejandro, I got a question for you. You're deep into the stats. You're deep into the psychology. I love what Quaku said, where he said, hey, well, hold on. I want to know if this is just Utah problems or if this is at-large problems. Because, look, I've had 50-50 batting average in Utah, but in California, I've had 90-10. I've had 80-20. And I think that's because, well, in California, you're pushed in the face of 15 different other cultures that maybe you may not have. Utah is surprisingly diverse because of the worldwide church presence. You know what I'm saying? It's not this homogenous, all white society that they want to make it out to be. But there definitely is a lot more diversity in places like New York, where Brad served, where generally a lot of the wards were phenomenal. In Los Angeles, where I've grown up, where in general the wards are pretty phenomenal. I would be interested in knowing, okay, at what percentage of the population, because now Mormons are 50% of Utah? It's gone down to like 50%, if I remember that's the stat.
Yeah, I think so.
So like in California, it's 1%. So I wonder, like, at what percentage do Mormons, instead of being the salt that gives the plate its savor, at what percentage does it start becoming a subculture that can breed kind of Utah toxicity? Is that at 5%? Is that at 10%? Is that at 20? You know, like, I'd be curious, like, what's the tipping point for people to start self-reporting that, like, I hate this crap. There's too many of us around. I want to go where there's less of them. You know what I'm saying?
Just a fun joke around that. Have you heard the adage that Mormons are like manure?
Yeah.
That if you spread them out real nice, they help everything grow.
Yeah.
But if you put them all in one pile, it just stinks.
Well, I push back a little bit on some of that I do see issues where you get too many Latter-day Saints and you get kind of a weird echo chamber and stuff. But again, I do think that people will blame the dominant culture for the problems in any society, right?
In anything,
so if you are the dominant culture, there's something to be that they'll pin that on you. However, if you actually look at the stats for communities that have lots of Latter-day Saints, all of their like positive things are super high and all their negative things are super low. And so here somebody is telling people that it's harmful. They're having that whispered in their ear. Now here's where I think push back a little bit on kind of what you said is Elder Corbett, I think said it super well. Is he talks about how they hijack our good emotions.
Yeah.
Okay. Latter-day Saints, the problem is actually that we get so much positivity in the church, so much. You all are beautiful. You all are wonderful.
That the cry bullies have figured out how to Trojan horse their crap.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we are extreme. If there's one thing, what is the one word people describe Mormons?
Vulnerably naive.
Nice. We're really
same word, right?
We're really, really nice, and because we're really, really nice is because we assume the best about everyone. We need to establish that there are lies out there in the world. That's why I actually think what you guys are doing here on Ward Radio and what others are doing online is sort of exposing the damned lies, as it were, that are out there, and being kind of offensive because you're being specific and saying, Latter-day Saints, this isn't true, this is garbage. And I think we need more of that because it inoculates people against the false narratives that tell people that the church is harmful.
Brad.
And I agree with you that we do need to point out lies when they are there. I just think we need to do more of teaching the right thing effectively. Because I want to do a thought experiment with you right now.
Ooh.
Don't think of a polar bear.
Okay.
Do not think of its white fluffy paws.
I'm thinking of a
Don't
black bear.
think of its claws. Don't think of
thinking
its
of
little
monarch.
nose. Don't think of it in a red scarf holding a Coca-Cola.
It's a transgender polar bear. oh shoot! I was supposed to say black bear,
Yeah.
but you made me say polar bear.
What are we all thinking of right now?
A polar bear.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the transgender polar bear.
Carden, there are other issues at hand here.
Well, no, I was trying to unthink the thing you
Of
were
the polar
mentally
bear.
cueing.
So,
Yeah.
here's the deal.
Don't think of Lizzo naked.
Oh, dude. So here's the deal. If you only focus on the negative, I think you end up hamstringing yourself. You need to focus on doing the positive correctly. Because I would agree with you, we get a whole lot of the positive, but I don't think we get a whole lot of the positive done well either.
Yeah,
So-
and that's my thing. I think that you do need both, but my thing is if the church has done anything, it's done more positive stuff. Like go look at General Conference talks about warning about the wickedness of the world. You go back to like Ezra Taft Benson, dude, and it's like, whoa, like he's throwing down. And now it's like, everybody, we have great days ahead. Like Zion is gonna do well.
Oh, and if they accuse us of doing something in the BYU volleyball game, we're going to come out and say, yeah. We really do struggle with being bad and harmful and racist and mean and cruel. And yeah, every bad thing you have ever said about us is totally true because we're so desperate to get along with you because we're convinced that just getting along is the way to just like get along because getting along is, got to get along.
Contention.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
So here's the thing. When we were presenting this at the conference a few weeks ago, I mean, it was sociology, and everyone, like, the approach that they took was one of, like, you know, critical theory, things like critical race theory, critical feminist theory, etc. And that whole thing operates on the assumption that, like, people in power are out there to harm you. And so that's like their a priori, like, assumption bias that they view everything with, like, at the onset. And that's so popular in our culture. It's all over the place on social media and TikTok.
Yeah.
I mean, I was listening to you guys talking about, like, well, what's BYU doing to combat this? And it's like, how in the world is BYU gonna, like, program everyone's TikTok algorithm to get them watching, like, the stuff we want them to watch? Everything that's happening
By
in the culture,
starting
it's
to
happening
produce
outside.
it. That's my biggest
Boom.
complaint. We are the only pro LDS live stream on YouTube. That's it. It's us, Ward Radio, here. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, with its millions, it can't whip together a worldwide youth committee.
Whoa, billions, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We gotta pop those numbers up, man.
Hashtag make it a trillion. You know what I'm saying?
But I genuinely have felt like this. I'm an idiot. Like, you can clip that one, guys. Like, I am not anything special. And somehow I'm out here on YouTube, like, doing things. And I'm like, where are the institutional church people that should be out here philosophizing and defending the church publicly and like warning
They're too
about the
busy
evil?
admitting to their racism after fake accusations of the BYU scandal.
Here's something really interesting that we did not find in the data. That was also surprising. Social media actually didn't come up. I don't think came up at all. Like, someone maybe read a book by like Richard Dawkins, but no one said social media. And what we found, like, this is from prior studies, the thing that predicts whether or not you'll stay active in your church actually isn't like how much atheist stuff you watch on YouTube and things like that. It's actually how many friends and like good relationships with your family that you have that are religious. So like the mutual program in the church, that's actually doing all the heavy lifting, and we're like talking about the culture war and stuff and kind of like wringing our hands, but it's the mutual program. It's like the bonds you build when you're doing ministry. That's the glue that keeps it all together.
But Alejandro, could I ask? I'm not doubting that per se, but is that a cause or is that an effect? For instance, if I have a stronger testimony of the gospel, I'm going to be more likely to go out there and interact with more Latter-day Saints, right? So is this that, oh yeah, well, of course you have more Latter-day Saint friends because you're being active in the church and you believe, and the moment you stop believing, you alter the types of relationships that you have.
So yeah, to answer that, so those two are correlated, and like in social science, it's hard to say if there's a cause and effect, but what we can definitely say is we don't have any like hard evidence suggesting that social media use or like watching atheist content on social media is correlated with leaving the church. So it's like, yeah, the association is like weak, but the idea that like the anti-Mormons on Twitter are what causing people to leave the church, like there's no evidence at all for that.
I don't know.
I can believe that.
I think part of the thing that maybe is difficult about this is that's going to be such a like
how do you
lurking,
track it?
It's such a lurking variable, you know, because you have people who are watching like a podcast by John DeLynn. What's the meta narrative there? That religion is harmful, right? The entire premise of Mormon stories is here are the ways that the church is harmful.
And they
right?
won't debate me on that subject, by the way, which I've invited multiple people to do. Is the church harmful? Open debate. Bring it on, anybody.
I think maybe this is just outside of the scope of the questions being asked, because it's probably very difficult to self-report.
Well,
you know?
also to me, I don't know how much I'm buying that, Alejandro. That's just me saying I think you're full of crap. No, I'm totally just kidding. I'm totally kidding. But one of the reasons I'm not buying that is because psychology itself, your great field of study, has gone to great lengths to prove things such as the fundamental attribution error, confirmation bias, all these other biases that we have. Well, another big thing that it's proven is the power of accusation. And to say that social media doesn't play a massive role in the inactivity of especially youth and young adults, when the primary driver of the power of accusation, the principal proponent of the accusatory fog, you can't tell me that social media, which traffics almost completely in bad news, all right, isn't playing a massive role in this.
Okay, here's where I think it fits in. Again, the data doesn't suggest that it's like directly linked, but when you look at what's happening with irreligiousness, there are other things happening as irreligiousness increases. One is there's more political polarization. There's more people that are dropping out of the political system entirely. Like votes have gone down since World War II, since forever up until Trump. Okay. And
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And like deaths of despair are skyrocketing, and so are things like addiction. And that addiction to like porn, drugs, video games. Okay. All of this is happening at the same time, and like concurrently with irreligiousness. Social media is driving a lot of this polarization. And in fact, we were just talking about this in our lab the other day. Someone, a bishopric member on a BYU ward, he showed us an experiment he did. He took two phones. One phone was a TikTok account that was just following like fun TikTok accounts, and the other one was one following like religious LDS sources. Okay, the algorithm with the fun stuff, like it was normal. It kept giving him like more fun stuff, but with the LDS one, it didn't give him more LDS stuff. It gave him more political stuff. And if it did give him LDS stuff, it was anti-Mormon political stuff. So people are trying, like the algorithm is trying. I mean, TikTok is biased. Everyone knows that. It's trying to like move people a certain way. But to me, it's striking that it would like throw political things at you. And it's, as far as I can tell, the political polarization and the mental health effect of social media on adolescents, that's where it's indirectly affecting like religiousness. Like if you feel like, if you're like a doomer, right? You're like doom scrolling. You feel like institutions, like public institutions, are just out to get you, that the economy is never going to recover, and that like the American empire is ending. Like you're going to be depressed, and you're not going to want to get up in the morning to go to church or to socialize with your church friends or to like do any of that stuff. And then like there's another poll that just came out saying that more Christians trusted Donald Trump than their church leaders. Like that's shocking. Like I don't care if you support Trump.
Dude, I gotta tell you, I can see exactly why they think that.
Yeah,
Really?
I don't see that too.
Oh yeah,
It's a big
absolutely.
problem.
Like Donald
I mean,
Trump would go up and he'd be like, "Yeah, the media lies. The media, the media lies.
I do.
You
Actually,
can't get that out of a single member of the 12."
Cardin has there is an authenticity to Donald Trump. He will say the thing that's absolutely out of this world. And the thing is, I think we get so caught
that
up.
everybody knows.
Exactly.
Well, see,
we get so caught up
that's
in political
happening.
correctness that people feel like people are being dishonest. And the church is extremely worried about offending people. And that comes off as inauthentic.
Not only that, but I mean, people love feeling like they have agency, and the vehicle that gives them that agency is politics. Like the best feeling in the world in 2016 is when you went to the booth and you're like, screw it, I'm voting for Donald Trump because F everyone, right? That felt empowering to so many people.
Wow, I guess we
Alejandro, we know
Alejandro
Alejandro voted for in
Yeah,
2016.
but like you go to church and they're saying you should forgive your enemies. It's like this is Rome. Like
Yeah.
we are into gladiator fights, not into forgiving our neighbors.
Real quick
so
though,
like
can I say that
The
I
Christian-
don't think social media drives it. I don't think
The
social media.
polarization?
Well, no, people leaving the church. I think that makes sense.
oh yeah,
to me.
yeah.
Okay, because I think what happens is something happens that causes someone to start to move in the direction away from the church. There's some sort of an event or series of events that drive people in that, and then what happens is those people then go to social media. All of a sudden, they're like, maybe I will start listening to some of these alternative voices. I'm a little frustrated with the church. And then, so it isn't the catalyst, but it is like the magnet that helps to pull people in the wrong direction.
Interesting.
Okay. So here's my question for you, Alejandro. Unfortunately, we got a hard out coming up here. But you're going to get your doctorate. You're going to be a doctorate in psychology. Pretty soon, we're going to be calling you Dr. Rodriguez. And once you're a doctor, you're going to have to start giving prescriptions. If you were a doctor now and you were just to be called to consult the brethren, the church at large, the church with a big C and the church with a little c, and say, hey, these are some things that we could do to improve ourselves, make it so less people leave, more people come back, everybody has a better experience. What kind of recommendation that's data driven based off of this information that you've gotten so far, what recommendations would you make?
I would suggest that there's two things. One thing they're doing already. One of the elements of religion being harmful that people reported was that people felt forced, like their autonomy was threatened. We classified that as harmful. So helping people do church because they want to do church voluntarily is going to be huge, especially in the upcoming generation.
Is that like children being forced to go to church with their parents as teenagers?
Yeah, like
or what?
like we would have people who would say, "My mom made me sing in the choir. That's why I don't go to church anymore."
Oh, are
and-
you
and
kidding
we-
me? I'm
not
sorry. To me, that is just so hashtag first world problems. I go serve my mission in Argentina where people are struggling to find food. They're fishing in the local river in order to get their protein. And then you've got some guy there saying, but my dad made me go to the choir.
I think we've lost sight of the
I mean,
vision.
I don't disagree.
How bad
with
was
you,
the music?
No.
But I would say someone who like is like, I'm going to be in choir because I want to, they're going to do so much better. Like, I mean, you can say the person who's too immature to participate in the church choir, like, you know, crocodile tears, right? But the person who's there willingly, like, they're a much more rounded, like, balanced person. And so helping people do that is going to be like, it's going to be more positive in the long run.
But the thing is the way you help them to actually want to go is they have to catch the vision of what this is all about.
Yeah.
The problem is if the church's vision is that we're just a social club of people who are really nice, we get together, we kind of have these beliefs, maybe they're true, maybe they're not. It's like, of course they're going to leave.
How are you going to teach the law of chastity?
Okay.
Just wait around for all the teenagers to decide, oh yeah, I
my
want to
gosh.
obey the law of chastity.
Okay.
Or maybe you got to say, hey, it's your duty to God and your future spouse, future family, which is worth it because of this data, these reasons, these scriptures. Like, I mean, to a certain extent, part of religiosity is faking it till you make it. And as Mormons, we believe as God is now, man once was, and as man can become, and whatever that phrase is, you know, so you got to fake godliness for a while until you actually make godliness. All right. Like, how we can't just wait around for everybody to decide to be godly.
Well, that brings me to my second point, okay? One of the ways that people make meaning in their life is through narrative, like stories. That's why Mormon stories is such a like impactful piece of propaganda, because it gives you like a super spicy story, right?
I wouldn't say super spicy. They bore you to tears. But if you're vitriolic
That's true.
enough
4
to stick
hours,
around, then
But-
yeah, you'll get something.
But I mean, the social science is saying religion is positive. Social scientists say of LDS populations that they have Mormon envy because our youth outperform in like, religiosity and less risk taking with drugs and alcohol and sex. And so like we have a very adaptive and beneficial belief system, but we don't. That's not part of our narrative right now. and we need to change that.
But John DeLynn said, but John
He's
DeLynn
dominating
said,
the narrative right now. That's the problem. Like the stuff you guys are doing with AI for Spanish speaking members is going to be huge for them because no one is giving them a positive narrative in Spanish about the church. And so what you guys are doing, I mean, I would say, get the church at the front end of tech and of like go hire a group of like pro LDS influencers and brainstorm how we can like leverage the latest and greatest cutting edge stuff, and then let's give people a positive narrative to combat this narrative of religion is harmful, which is like not empirically supported by the data.
the boomers will totally be on board for that, Card.
Oh, dude. I love that you just said that because I have intuitively felt that for a long time. But yeah, it's been surprisingly difficult. Our number one deterrent to success is anti-Mormons. That's just a fact. Okay. But a very close second is just conservative members that refuse to adapt to the 21st century, dude. You know,
Yeah,
and
no. But here's the thing.
socially, technologically, everything, you know?
I think some people criticize Kwaku for being like too pragma or too like liberal or something. But what people don't realize is that's actually a good thing, because liberals and people who are like more on the left, they're more open in personality, and they're the ones willing to try like new things like they're not willing to just stick to tradition, the tried and true. Like we need more. Like, look,
I'm gonna edit this part out.
I consider myself like a conservative, like true blue Mormon with a social science background, but
Okay.
but it's like the liberals, the faithful liberal members that are like pushing the envelope in positive ways, like you guys. And so we need to stop judging people. Like maybe you don't totally support the latest, greatest conservative thing, whatever, but you're the one pushing the envelope, and we need to support that. And I think that's how we're gonna win. I mean, someone on Reddit even said this about John DeLynn. They said like, man, if we had more like people of color on podcasts doing like pro-Mormon stuff, John Dehlin would be over because we're like diverse and hip and young and like for the church. It would be over if we got like more people from more diverse backgrounds with like a slightly liberal like, you know, whatever, to do pro-church content. It's up, honestly, it's truly up to the members at this point.
Hey, look, we've been trying to break that glass ceiling, should I call it? You know what I'm saying? For a while. But okay, awesome. Well, any last thoughts before we go, bro? Anything that the audience needs to know from your data, dog?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of what Paul said, like, be an example of the believers, do your best to be a good Mormon, treat people kindly, and then like make your religion as meaningful as possible. Like, people will respond to you being authentic, genuine, and like, if you live a deeply meaningful life, that will make all the harm bearable and worthwhile.
Hey, Alejandro, I hate to cut this off. I would love to see a podcast with you and Dan McClellan and take a bet on who uses the word data more.
And whether you correctly say the data show instead of data shows.
And scholarly consensus.
Yeah, that's literally like saying me and the other priests of Baal have chosen.
Oh my gosh.
You know, you can't say this. All right.
All right.
So anyway, all right.
All right.
Structuring power.
Someone's going to use the word datum, though. And use it correctly.
That's true.
Datum.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the singular form of data.
Well, actually, I think what you're saying is interesting because it is the rebels, like liberals, classical liberals, and people who are interested in pushing the envelope on the culture are the ones who actually create the progress that's necessary. They're actually the ones who do expand. And we, at this point, we, like you see on Twitter, you kind of have this idea that anything slightly left is satanic, and that leaves you just with a bunch of fuddy-duddies who are upset at because your neighbor's music is too loud. You know, I mean, there's a weird echo chamber you see some members of the church trying to create, but it's out of fear. It's out of insecurity and fear. The best ideas come from people really being combative, from arguing and debating and coming up with the best possible.
The church is the ultimate original gangster of classical liberalism. Like, that's one of the things that I was ultimately attracted to.
That's what St. Joseph is the saint of.
Oh, yeah.
On the back wall there.
All right, cool. Sick. So, hey, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you and know a little bit more about this data, bro?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter. I'm Roughstone Trolling. And you guys can find me on Facebook in the Latter-day Lobster Facebook group.
Okay, where'd you get the idea from of Roughstone Trolling? That sounds familiar. Have you guys heard that before? I think I heard that.
Hey, great minds can think alike.
Oh, yeah, I'm totally kidding you. All right, awesome. All right, well, his name is Alejandro Rodriguez. He is the professor of all things apocryphal and awesome stats of Why We Doubt. I'm actually naming this after Frank Capra's propaganda film, Why We Fight. We're just going to call it Why We Doubt, you know. And thanks a lot for hanging out with us today. This is totally awesome. As always, guys, it's been real and it's been fun. If you want to see more, check us out on wardradio.com.